That won't do, pig. We watched Babe, Pig in the City, and we are in defense of bad movies. Hey everybody, Sam here with another In Defense of Bad Movies episode. I am joined as always by my co-host Bobby Mattern.
Hey Sam.
And Loren Bowen.
Hello.
Hey guys, how are you?
Well,
what?
I'm doing well.
Because there's a well in the movie. And that's what sets off our whole adventure.
That's immediately where you go with that.
Speaking of the movie, we watched Babe, Pig in the City, and that was brought to us by Bobby.
You know, I have to say, like, sometimes we do these experimental episodes, like Laura, may she rest in peace, suggested doing the Illusionist Prestige episode that one time that didn't really fit our formula. And I had recommended we all come to this movie because we had all discussed this movie and none of us had really seen it. And then I listened to the mini-sode and was like, oh shit, I'm actually defending this movie I have never seen before until today. So...
Really?
Yeah.
I'm fine with this breaking format.
I could have sworn that you were like, yes, let's...
I think my text read, hey, this might be fun because none of us have seen it.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
I remember that was what we were going into. That this was one of our random, like the My Best Friend's Wedding episode of just breaking format and doing something exciting.
Well, to reset. So in general, what we do in the podcast is one of us takes a movie that is regarded as bad and defends it as a good movie. This one, and we can kind of pick and choose what we use as our indicator. This one, we're kind of using the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes because critics generally liked it. 62% of critics liked it.
Fuck critics though, right?
And
with this movie,
you know, like they conspire to give DC movies a bad reviews.
Yeah.
That's all. I had nowhere to go with that.
That's right.
That's the best I can do to make fun of Batman
fake
fans on
critics.
social
I
media.
thought you were going to start doing like
critics are cool.
A Donald Trump thing where
The dishonest critics telling you your Batman isn't good.
But so the audience score on this is 40%. I remember way back, Siskel and Ebert, they gave it really good reviews. I think it was on like both of their lists for like the top movies of the year. I looked up Ebert's review. He gave it 4 out of 4 stars. Yep. So I think that's what it's going to kind of become into, is discussing this dichotomy between...
because the divisiveness is compelling. Like looking at just sort of the critic spread, people who it was the best movie of the year and it was glorious.
And having finally watched this movie, the divisiveness makes sense to me.
I can kind of see that.
Yeah. All right.
Like I come down more on one side, but like I can see why other people would not.
That's interesting. You should say that because I guess I'm kind of middle of the road as far as that goes. So let's get into it. Although now that I know you're not really spearheading the prosection or the defense.
I didn't mean to make that as a judgment. I was just like, to be fair, I had literally not seen this movie until today.
Oh, you saw it today even?
Yeah, today.
Lauren and I saw Babe, the original Babe, today for the first time in a while.
Because go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, because we had watched Pig in the City in preparation, and they we haven't watched Babe in forever, and so we each separately, because we have busy lives, took the time to re-enjoy that classic.
And you had seen Babe before, both of you, right?
I'd seen both of them before.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd never seen Pig in the City, so I just had the glowing little orb of Babe in my head.
Yeah. Prior to this, like I don't mean to be, my opinion doesn't change. Now, I adore Babe. I think Babe is just like a perfect family movie, and I love it. Like I love every second of Babe.
Mm-hmm.
That's
it's a super charming movie. It makes me want to go vegetarian or at least not eat pork anymore. And then I will smell pork products, and that will change my mind. But immediately after watching the movie,
instead.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That is dark, by the way. The
duck meat, yeah.
The fact that we should say spoiler alert for both movies. I guess
the pig lives.
Yeah, but the
I would
main
have
duck
a real problem if the movie ended with pig getting eaten.
The main duck in the movie in the first one, his friend gets eaten. Yeah, that's pretty dark.
Well, there's even like
They're on the farm. There has to be steaks.
In the second movie, there's a
They actually did the whole not duck steaks, but the whole duck.
in the second movie, there's a throwaway line about like him having lost a lot of family members, like Ferdinand. Did you catch that? It's like right when he gets to the city, he's talking to that other bird.
Oh,
or something like that.
The
right?
pelican that he had,
Yeah.
because Ferdinand the duck was chasing after Babe because he's his lucky pig, which we discovered was not something established in the first movie. But I think he'd given a fake sob story to a pelican to give him a ride in his beak.
But also, was it fake? Because Ferdinand has lost a lot of friends, one can assume.
Ferdinand has had a dark life, for sure. I don't know. Ferdinand feels like an out for yourselfer. I feel like he doesn't make friends.
Ferdinand pretended to be a rooster to secure his own life. Like,
but how did he get to that point? He probably lost a lot of friends along the way. And,
I took that to be totally honest.
Yeah. So let's get into it. Why do you think this is so decisive? And where do you come down? Well, I guess I'm fast forwarding to verdicts already, but this might be a very short episode. I don't know.
So it's interesting. It's sort of a pop cultural punchline that George Miller, the creator of Mad Max, is also the creator of Babe and the director of Babe, Pig in the City. And I've never quite seen it with Babe, but I can totally see it with Babe, Pig in the City.
Well, he actually directed this one versus just producing on the first.
And it's a weird-ass movie. It takes the concept of Babe and just, like, makes a sharp left turn and kind of builds out that world into, a weird, cluttered, just kind of this, like, really interestingly designed greater world, and the city's kind of interesting. And I was thinking this is a really, like, an accidentally good companion movie to the last two movies we've done, to Brothers Grimm and to Planet of the Apes, movies that, like, had ambition and, you know, like, had interesting, production designs.
And apes.
And apes. That being said, I kind of dug it. Like, I really kind of...
this is the most successful of those that you have listed. With, like, the super magical realism.
I was really drawn into the weirdness, and I'm always kind of like a weepy dude at movies, and this year has only made me more emotional. But there were moments in this movie that like really got to me, which I was totally caught off guard by.
And one of the great things I think about these movies, I remember having this experience in the first film, and especially in this one, there's something about, like, visual depictions of sadness and despair. Like, each movie has just these moments that are, like, quiet and, like, still on screen, but, like, someone's heart is breaking, and it like reaches into my soul the way not a lot of movies do, and just like, oh, it's so heartrending and terrible, and like it's traumatizingly effective.
And a thing that gets to me, I mentioned I mentioned Steven Universe a couple episodes ago, and part of the reason I like that show so much and that show emotionally gets to me so much is it kind of gets into, you know, the plight of trying to be a decent person in the face of, you know, nasty things happening. And Babe, Pig in the City really gets into, like, what it means to be decent in the face of, you know, when you're faced against all odds. And that shit really gets to me, especially this year for no reason. But, like,
Yeah, no, seriously. This, like, the moment when Babe is being chased by a bull terrier, and, like, in his chasing of him, his leash gets caught, and the bull terrier is dangling off a bridge, his head in the water, and he's going to drown, and all, like, the stray animals are just, like, watching, like, nothing. And then Babe goes out and, like, is paddling a boat over him to save him. Like, that, I was gonna lose it at that moment.
I was gone by that moment, because that moment is preceded by Babe's life flashing before his eyes, turning around, facing the dog, and saying, why? But it's not why me. It's just like, it's more of a why do we do this to each other? It's such an innocent thing to ask something that's about to kill you.
I feel like, and you might think that I'm just being contrary or playing devil's advocate, but I really do feel like I didn't not enjoy the movie. There was a lot of good aspects to the movie. I feel it was a bit of a Shaggy Dog story, or Shaggy Pig story, really, where just like a bunch of events happened that aren't all super connected. It was like a series of Looney Tune cartoons, which I don't, and again, these aren't bad things. I ultimately walked away going, though, like, okay, that was a movie. and I didn't really. There were like the moment where with the bull terrier, which is the ugliest breed of dog there is, by the way.
Oh, cuddly.
They are ugly, but cute but ugly. I just was like, well, of course he saved it. He's a good pig. He's going to save it, and so.
But it's still so effective.
But he doesn't just save it. The movie lets you think. Like, the movie actually gets you to a point where you're like, I think this movie has it in itself to let the dog drown. Like, we've already seen Mickey Rooney's clown have his entire life destroyed and then die. Like, but it gets to a point where I'm like, I don't know. I think it might go this dark. And even if it doesn't, you get to see all of these other characters at their absolute worst as they're all just kind of watching this dog drown before Babe comes in and saves it.
And it's so effortful, like his little trotter is going in the water and he's pushing a boat. Like, it's not just a quick fix. It's like he's really struggling to do it.
Maybe it has to do with the fact that I did see the movie before. I don't remember how exactly I felt about that, but I do remember about that scene. But I do remember about that movie having the same thing. Like, it was fine, but one of the best movies of the year, 4 out of 4 stars. That I didn't get the critical love for it.
And I think that comes in with the technical element. It is directed beautifully.
It is. I agree with that.
It's such that neat, like, it's so particular to Australian directors as well, but not surprisingly, George Miller, just this great, like, frenetic energy on the sides, and just gorgeous, like, action shots and beautiful visuals.
Maybe it's they front or maybe middle loaded the more emotional scenes before it becomes this out-and-out cartoon where Mrs. Hoggett is this her clown outfit is filled with and it is a cartoon at this point, and so by the end it is like, okay, this is just fun and frivolity. Where's the heart to it?
I agree. It sort of had third act problems after we had to go. So, should we do plot at all, or just
we probably should have done this earlier. If only we had a 15-second plot synopsis.
Okay, Babe, Pig in the City is a dumb movie, and it's like about a pig, and then so the pig is played by what's her name? No.
Chucky Pickles or
nope,
Chucky Pickles.
Okay, first off, he was not a Pickles. Chucky was their friend.
That was my sister watched that show. I was a teeny bit too old for it.
Tommy Pickles is playing Babe in this version, whereas Chucky was Babe in the original.
Really?
You dare. It's so comforting.
That's funny.
Like, hearing the Rugrats voice actors' voices is so, like, I'm already halfway towards sentimental.
I think I might be reading into it too much. Like, Elizabeth Daly's version of Babe is a little more, I would say is like a little meeker than...
Yeah, and that's her voice quality as well.
Yeah.
Like, Christine Cavanaugh always has, like, the kind of edgy, fun voice. Whereas...
They both did a great job, but yeah.
And the second one with Chucky?
The first
one was Chucky.
Okay.
Second one was Tommy.
I'm sorry, geez.
Angelica's gonna be in the next one. So,
Babe, Fury Road.
So Babe tries to kill Farmer Hoggett, and so he's laid up because the attempt failed, and the farm's gonna go under. So Mrs. Hoggett's gonna take him to the city and enter him in a competition to win the money, but this drug-smelling dog, like, showing off his skills to Babe, the TSA suddenly thinks that he's a contraband pig, and they throw them into custody for a few hours.
Don't get me started on TSA, by the way.
While Mrs. Hoggett gets strip search. I enjoyed the immediate going from the bucolic of the farm to, like, what's more dispiriting than the airport? Like, these adorable characters immediately in the gray and sadness of the airport was so great.
It is a big dichotomy between the two, just especially because when we watched the first one, it was established this is contemporary because there's a fax machine involved. Mm-hmm. But aside from that, it's very much like this could have been... It could have taken place that year. It could have been taking place 50 years before.
Yeah, it's totally surreal and out of time.
Yeah.
I mean, the first Babe is kind of like... Oh, is that what you were just saying? The fax machine.
Yeah, it's inexactly placed within, latter half of the 20th century.
But even when they get to the modern city, even that feels dated. And even though it has to be... Because we saw the airplane scene, that was a very contemporary jet. But then when we get to this real world, it even feels it feels out of time.
Well, and I like how the system, the social systems, you move from the social hierarchy of the farm, which is very you know, it feels very traditional, very noble. Rex and Fly lead over the rest of the animals, and they have these social gatherings. Like, the first thing you meet is a drug sniffing dog who's super stoked because when he sniffs, when he barks, he gets rewarded, and so he does that to Babe, and it sets off this whole series of unfortunate events for
Oh, we've done that one.
yeah, call back. But it sets off this whole series of events for Babe and Mrs. Hoggett, you know, for the worst in the immediate future. But then you get that shot of the dog getting rewarded for barking. It's the best. Anyway, so yeah. They decide that Mrs. Hoggett is not a druggie and go on.
But they've missed their flight, and so they have to find a place to stay because the flight home is not for a few days. But who's going to take a pig? She goes through the whole bank of like hotel options, and no one will take the pig until she hears about a secret hotel where they are apparently animal friendly. And then we descend into this beautiful pushing daisies tweed canal line backlot that I want to live on. The buildings are so pretty.
Yeah.
All right, and then that's the movie.
I thought we were going to go through the whole thing.
So he goes
plot for plot. Go scene for scene, Loren.
So for a moment we end up at Hotel for Dogs, but for like dogs and cats and apes and I loved, I forget her name, but the proprietress of the hotel.
So
she was immediately like the most compelling looking character actress.
She is very interesting.
Miss Flume, right?
Miss Flume.
Not Mary Riley, is it? Are you looking her up?
Oh, Mary Gross, are you thinking?
No.
No? Okay, never mind.
I thought I looked her up. Are you looking her up?
No, I'm just looking at my notes. Her name is Miss Flume in the movie.
Miss
okay.
Flume.
Well, if only there was some way to tell.
I can look it up, so...
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to cut all this, right?
Probably. Who knows? Who's to say? I might have to stretch it out if the episode doesn't last long.
I'm unclear. I was under the impression that people lived in the hotel with their animals, but it really felt like several of the rooms perhaps were just run by the animals. We only ever see 3 residents of this hotel that are human. There is a room that is just a chorus of cats.
Yes.
There is...
She was very animal friendly. It could very well be that Mary Stein. She... What did I say? That she took in these animals because she had the vacancies and was like, well, I'm an animal lover. Until I have people who want to stay here, I will put them in here.
But then sadly, there's like a group of dogs that have sweaters on that must be taken care of by humans. It's a little, I'm curious of what the dynamic is.
It was interesting.
It's interesting, too, the way the humans talk to each other is often less intelligible than the way that animal... Like, you could honestly sub out a lot of the dialogue for just Charlie Brown trombones. Charlie Bone, did I say Charlie Bone? Charlie Brown trombones.
Dirty. You're doing the porn version.
You blockhead. But yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting.
Is Mickey Rooney reprising his role from Pete's Dragon? I'm just curious.
Mickey Rooney in this movie, man. Like, that was dark and sad. That was like a Tom Waits song crashed into a kid's movie.
And then Babe tried to kill another person. When
Babe
the apes
arguably did kill another person.
When the apes of this magician kidnapped him to be a part of his clown show that was being performed for children in a hospital, I was not clear if Mickey Rooney was a bad guy or a good guy.
Yeah, neither was I.
I think he's a sad, desperate guy.
He's a sad, desperate guy that just wants to make people happy.
He's performing in front of this backdrop that says the Flumes and their magical apes, which
implying that there was
so my gosh, I didn't even see that.
And the last thing you see is that backdrop set on fire and him staring longingly at his backdrop.
Because the proprietress is his niece, so presumably there was like a wife and maybe children.
She had an aunt who was in the group, maybe.
And Babe gets into shenanigans and sets the thing on fire. And this is one of the moments that's like, as he and his orangutan just like stare at it, that they're still faces but souls crushed.
4 stars says, what's his name? Oh, goddamn, I just had his name in my head. Roger Ebert.
And I don't know if that's...
Well, I don't disagree.
This movie brings up an interesting kind of idea of what is too dark for a kids movie.
And that is a lot of the, I'll pull up some stuff later, but like the negative people really lean on the like too dark for kids. But I don't necessarily disagree. I don't necessarily agree with that.
I kind of side with you on that.
I agree. I think
kids crap is dark as hell.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. Kids need. I mean,
and kids like dark
you're gonna,
things.
Yeah, and they're going to learn about it eventually. Why not learn about it in a safe
in
movie
something
theater?
that's artful and
That's
telling
true,
you a
too.
good message? Like, it's much better than DreamWorks bullshit. With, you know,
That's right. With kids movies
Dark
certainly
humor.
don't shy away from violence or
Yeah.
death or any of that. This movie feels dark because it makes you feel the plight and the cost of every life it introduces. So that, yeah, the guy kidnaps Babe to perform for free and to take advantage of him in his magic show. But you bet your ass you're gonna feel awful when his life is destroyed. You know, whereas in
because
another
he's performing
movie,
for children in the hospital. And then he gets a heart attack and dies because Babe has crushed his life.
I like
La la la.
the Wikipedia plot summary diagnoses his death as a food coma. He goes into a food coma and dies. And I don't know if that's official or just someone writing a Wikipedia summary.
Wait,
like,
can you
having
die
fun.
from a food coma, guys?
Where did that
dangerous.
come from?
Because he's clearly like in a coma or something. There's
I assume he had a heart attack or something, or
and he's
he goes out on a
what do you think?
respirator.
I'm agreeing with
Always-
you.
Yeah.
I just think it's like really that was a funny leap. Like, all right, food.
Yeah,
coma.
right?
And he's absolutely silent. We never hear a word out of him from the moment he comes in with his, ice cream and his disheveledness and sees a pig in his room that his apes have stolen.
I was worried about some of these animals. And I was very relieved when at the end, of course, it's going to say
They are
that.
not well cared for, these animals.
I don't
Oh, you mean the
I don't
literal
mean the characters. I
actors.
mean the literal actors. I mean, at one point, there's a dog being... He's ostensibly...
Very carefully has it looped around his foot, if we're talking about the bull terrier, right?
No.
No, never mind.
I'm talking about
Look over there.
Fleelick when
Fleelick.
when Fleelick is being dragged. He's holding on to a strip of clothing coming from a door. He is 2 feet in front of a tire that if he lets go of that, which I'm assuming they had harnesses.
Yeah, and I mean clearly it's not. It's movie magic.
It is, but I was concerned for the.
No, then it was effective, wasn't it? You really thought he was in that scenario.
I mean, and they definitely had puppets aside from just the real animals in these movies. I'm like, I wish that were a puppet. It would have just put me a lot more at ease.
I'm sure it was green screen. I'm sure it was all pretend.
I don't know.
It did make me as nervous as in the first one when there's like the wild dogs attacking the sheep and one dog gets trampled on by the sheep in one scene and it's like, oh, that dog okay? All right. That must happen. This must be okay. Shake it off.
There's such an obvious cut in the first one that I noticed as a kid. It's where Babe is driving them off. The dogs are following Babe. You see Babe run, and then there's a really obvious cut, like the color of the sky changes, and then you see the dogs running, like to trick you into thinking that Babe and the dogs are in the same scene together.
But I far from thinking that this is the contemporary Milo and Otis. I think that most of these animals survived.
Well, you fail if you're a Babe movie and you put animals in danger. If one of those animals dies on your watch, like, you destroy the Babe franchise? Can we call it a franchise?
Not like A Dog's Purpose, which is about dogs dying. So if a few dogs get hurt in the movie, hey, that's...
The filmmaker just has it in for dogs. He was like, I'm going to do this just so I can kill these dogs.
And
what was that HBO show that killed horses? The one about horse racing? And then just ended abruptly?
Luck?
Yeah.
Like, literally killed horses because of the filming?
I think like a couple horses died and then they just stopped it. They're like, it was mid-season. They're like, we're done. We're not going to do any more.
That's their choice.
Yeah, right? I do think that the Dog's Purpose thing, that's still up in the air as to what happened.
Yeah.
But
I could see how that was taken out of context.
Yeah.
It's probably green screen or something. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. What do you think about
Nope, they killed those dogs.
What do you think about those pigmen? The 2 pigmen who helped the plot along a couple times.
I don't know.
That was
The
disturbing.
judge and the guy in the airport.
Oh. I think it's a family that lives in the city and they're very sympathetic. It was a little magical.
It implies a little bit like we're ugly, so we can relate to pigs. We're ugly, so she let us
Which
stay
is
in
crazy
her
because this
hotel.
pig is adorable.
Yeah.
He is very cute.
That was a whimsical moment. I mean, there's definitely stuff that, as a grown-up, did not work, but, like, looking through the context of a child's movie, which does not imply that children's movies can't be good, but just the, like, sure, for a kid's movie, like, this whimsical, non-sequitur thing absolutely is fine.
Okay.
Like, the idea that apes, when they're hungry, they go off and steal candy, you silly apes. And you're going to share a whole jar of jelly beans with an entire house of animals?
I'm still
Because
hungry.
Babe is now like the boss of the neighborhood when he saves the bull terrier like a boss who's now his muscle.
Comrade Babe comes along and takes everyone's hard-earned food and redistributes it to...
Starts walking around on his hind legs, drinking with the farmer.
I did feel a little bit of that was manipulative. Those animals, they were like...
Those animals were very manipulative.
Oh,
they gave him
a
a
kitten with the
sob
huge
story.
eyes who was crying about being hungry? I don't know if that was manipulative, Sam.
No, okay. There's always this fine line with movies because, of course, they're manipulative. That's what movies or entertainment are designed to do, to manipulate your emotions. But then sometimes it crosses a line to what people call manipulative, which is just... I don't know what that line is. That would be an interesting study.
I guess what you do is you look at the aim of that moment or those characters, and I think that they come in at a part where everything is really desperate and sad, and then they're kind of like a punchline at the end of it. You know, like you're sad, and they're a moment where you can kind of giggle and laugh because you're like, they're so cute.
But then also if you're looking at what the movie's trying to do, like first movie is plight of a farm animal, and
I'm just going to point out real quick, we have a cat. It was going up to us clawing and begging for attention, and we are ignoring her as much as possible.
We ate all the jelly beans.
Let's talk about this cute animal movie some more.
But if you look at, if you're trying to achieve something, the first movie is pointing to the plight of farm animals and the peril that they live in. So of course the next movie would have to point to the plight of city animals and
starving kittens and prostitute poodles.
You can't say prostitute may be a stretch, but you can't say that what's happening to these animals isn't true to life. Like, absolutely, there's the dog that was just thrown to the side because it got too old. There's the puppy that's owner put it in a bag and threw it in the river. Like, I mean, this is all true. It's really like tamping on all the sadness in one.
I'm gonna
but
go ahead.
No, but like when the puppy talks about his owner putting him in a bag and throwing him in the river.
It's the cutest story about being killed.
I think it's it feels wrong to say it's presented as humor, but I think...
what's funnier?
It's meant to be an over-the-top moment. Like, you're presented with a lot of sob stories, and then at the very end, you're hit with the two sobbiest stories, where you're like, oh, Jesus, and you kind of have to laugh, because it's so ridiculous and over the top.
That's true. And it is perfect. Like, the little child voices coming out of the kitten and the puppy. Like, oh, gosh.
I'm going to posit this, and I might back it up, but I think it's pretty...
for a moment?
I'm going to pause it.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to throw this out there. And I might take it back, but I'm going to posit that it is manipulative when it takes you out of the moment. And you think, I am being manipulated. And I think that happened with me. Not so much to the point like where you see this over-the-top thing, and it's like, oh, this is a joke. But to me, it's just like, oh, okay, no, this is overly cute kittens with overly cute voices saying that they're hungry. And I didn't care for that.
This is like Patches and the other orphan child from The Simpsons, where they're just the most cutest, patheticness. Just
what's her name?
Nothing gives you that right.
Yeah, nothing gives you that.
The moment that took me out was the jelly bean scene. Even though I appreciate what was happening, I was mad that it was jelly beans and that a single jelly bean for every animal was absolutely not the right choice. It's the logic of children and animals, but I'm like, you guys could have stolen some vegetables or some meat that you could parse out to everyone, and then it could still be the story of like, well, that wasn't enough, but like jelly beans, guys.
Going into meat takes it to a weird place, though, too.
I know. Well, chimpanzees are omnivores.
Right, but what kind of meat would it be? I mean, I guess it could be cattle.
Chicken, because this movie does not care about chickens.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it cares about ducks.
Yeah, but no chickens are ever romanticized in these films. I think that's the only thing the filmmakers will eat.
I'm going to say Pat's Corner. It's time for Pat's Corner. It was at minute 53 when my mom said, I wrote down where to go.
It was during this scene, right? Like the sad, pathetic lost animal scene?
It was at minute 53. I don't remember what it was. She
during
said,
a really emotional moment.
Yeah, I paused it to get something, and she says, this is a stupid movie. Just throwing that out there.
It's weird. I really dug this movie, and I totally understand that assessment of this movie.
So you can understand the 40% audience score.
Yeah, no, totally. I get why this isn't, universally beloved. I think it's great. But I think it's... I mean, it's certainly weird, and you certainly have to go with it to a certain extent, but...
Does this movie take place in the Superman universe? They go to Metropolis. That's the name of the city.
See. But this is a mashup of all cities.
But it's a city of tomorrow, so they put all the city stuff in. The Superman's Metropolis is the city of tomorrow, so I could see that.
And I love that visual of Babe looking out the window and the cityscape that has everything in
The
it.
Hollywood sign, the Statue of Liberty.
Sydney Opera House.
Yeah.
Christ the Redeemer.
What is
World
it? Golden
Trade,
Gate Bridge.
Mexico
Yeah.
Gate.
That was fun.
Just in case you were in doubt of the genericness of the city, we've decided it's every city, not just any city.
Mm-hmm. Which it does say something about it. Mm-hmm. I like that.
Love it put me in mind of Pushing Daisies, which is obviously like on a pedestal of amazing TV for me.
I could see that. That was a fantastic show.
Yeah, it's great.
And just anything that harkens to that, it's like, I love it.
Yeah. I like the look of it. I'm not going to...
Sure.
Except for some of the puppets. The pelican puppets were...
Pelican puppets were a little...
They felt out of place.
The pelican puppets, you can make an argument with the puppets that it was sort of going for stylized, like it didn't mind
because
hiding the
sky
fakeness
looked really
of
fake
it.
too.
Yeah, so there I could have bought it. The ones that affected me were the weird chimpanzee baby puppets.
Oh yeah,
those were not cute. Those were uncanny valley little puppets. Yeah. Like, no, this should be the cutest thing in the movie. You ruined it.
You kind of wanted them to fall to their deaths and get smashed.
Yeah, they showed up and I was, for a second, I was like, are they CGI? Like, they just look...
That's how I felt about the pelican. It was like, oh, is this animated or is it puppets?
Maybe it was enhanced a little.
Maybe. I don't know.
Because it is enhanced somewhat by CGI, right? Like the mouth movements and stuff. I
believe so.
Yeah.
Which it's fairly good.
It gets really
in
good
both of the movies.
accidental performances out of the monkeys on this one, especially.
Guys, can we talk about it now?
Sure.
Thelonious is like the greatest character actor I've seen in any movie. I am not joking about that.
Is that the
orangutan has such pathos and pain in his eyes. Every time he's looking at camera, he's so still and there's so much happening. So
he barely talks.
Jerk neighbor
for good reason.
Jerk neighbor across the street like catches on that there are all these animals here illegally, so she calls the cops and like they're going through and pulling them all out and putting them in cages. We get to Thelonious's room and he's just sitting there quietly with the fish in the bowl because he takes care of the fish now that Mickey Rooney's gone, and he's just waiting quietly with just sad resignation in his eyes. And they break the fish bowl.
I will agree.
It's just, oh no, the fish.
And this was a movie too where I'm like, I think they might kill the fish.
I was very concerned about that too.
They put a lot of work into not killing that fish, and I was so pleased.
Yeah. And although Thelonious doesn't know, he was gone by the time the fish was saved, so he has that in his heart.
He'll find out later.
He'll find out, but he has it in his heart for a while.
Oh gosh. And his heart has been through so much, and you can see it in his eyes.
I'm not dressed yet.
Oh gosh.
He's getting
that was tough. That was a lot.
So Babe goes to save them at the hospital that they've for some reason all been brought to, but that's okay, we'll accept it. And like they've all had their clothes taken away, but Thelonious is putting back on his clothes. It's like, I can't go. I'm not dressed yet because he's so far away from his animal
They were
nature.
definitely saying something with that.
Oh gosh.
And that was
his
interesting.
Eyes. And I know it's just because he's an ape, but still.
Loren was really moved by that guy.
Oh my gosh.
That's her new crush.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm not in love with Thelonious. I'm just in love with him as an actor.
Well, that's what all your crushes are good actors.
That's a really good point.
You put out the animal casting notice, like, we want a really sad orangutan.
Oh, just the saddest you can find.
We want
we know
his
most
soul to be
orangutans are
broken.
sad.
We want your orangutan who's seen some shit.
Have you saved any orangutans from any Russian circuses? Because that's the one we want.
It's auditions. Hand me a clothespin. Oh, okay.
He only has a happy ending. It's so sad and wonderful. Here's my favorite part. Oh, God.
But even yes, absolutely. But even the chimps who have large speaking roles, though they sync up their movement and their their obviously computerized facial effects with their with the way they move their heads and stuff. I don't know how much of that is CGI and how much of that is directing animals to walk over here and look here, but that all felt pretty convincing.
I agree. Yeah,
because you don't see the seams very well in this. Like sometimes in CGI, like I can see it's CGI, I'll look away. And this, like, I don't know if it's a combination of light CGI and peanut butter on the roof of the mouth, but it looks good.
Yeah, I agree. It does.
And this is one of those movies that we've covered. that could have only happened at that exact moment in time. Like, this movie would not be made the way it was made in 1998 now, you know? The production would be a lot more artificial looking, I think.
I wish they
Like, I could
would.
see they wouldn't use animals at all. It would all be CGI.
And I feel like
and
that's
that would be
such a
unfortunate.
shame. I'm
be a
so
fucking
much more
animated movie.
willing
Yeah.
to. It's so much more theatrical, and I'm so much more willing to suspend disbelief when it's a puppet or when it's, you know, some sort of effect, because it feels earned and real. And...
I don't mind when it's CGI, except when it looks CGI.
Well, yeah.
And right now we're very, very close, but we're not quite there where I haven't seen the most recent Planet of the Apes movie, so maybe it is there. I've heard that we're getting very good with chimpanzees. But
Yeah, and with the new Planet of the Apes movies too, you certainly get good performances out of, you know, the motion capture actors, and the technology gets you to empathize with these characters, but you're not ever really where you think it's a real chimp you're watching.
Yeah.
There's something that having something visceral on screen feels so much more different.
I think, though, you're at a handicap with those movies. I don't know, maybe not.
No, I think you definitely, you can't, you are at a handicap, but I'm surprised at how much this movie's able to stretch within that handicap, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And it already, in the nature of the movie, requires you to make so many leaps and concessions anyway for just the logic of the world and the magic of everything that you forgive anything that might be shy of perfect. And I think that's smart too. That, like, it makes you come on a journey with it, and it makes you accept its preface.
Yeah. You have to meet them halfway a little bit.
Yeah, as you should, as good theater requires.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about also with the technological limitations, the chase, the big chase between the angry dog and Babe, you know, like, with, you know, if that was made today, I think that would have stretched out a larger geographical distance. They would have been doing slightly more insane things, even though they do pretty crazy things, like an entire junkyard collapses on some of those dogs. But it makes, you know, what is essentially 2 blocks feel really big and intricate, and that's interesting. You know, it's fun to watch, or exciting to watch in a way that feels old fashioned.
All right. So, any other big things to talk about before we move on to verdicts? Although we think we kind of know the verdicts.
The end caper does get a little long for me, as there's the breaking into the hospital, getting everyone out. There's Mrs. Hoggett and Ms. Flume are chasing them down, and they end up at like a society ball.
When it gets to the elite ball, it's very goofy.
Yeah, the shenanigans are real big there.
I do like, speaking of Ms. Flute, I like the decision to make characters who I don't want to say a grotesque, but she's a caricature.
Yes.
And she, from the start, she's so stuffy and you kind of don't like her, but she wins you over, and she is one of the good guys. And what's his name? Thelonious. He even feels like he's very gruff at first, and he keeps that throughout the movie, and he is one of the good guys as well. And I don't know, I like that Mickey Rooney. We're on the fence about what he is, but he's a bit of a grotesque. And I just like that when, you know, it's not the pretty people are good and ugly people are bad. It's no, like, people who are on the surface not that attractive can still be good, and often are.
One of the things I love is that Mrs. Hoggett becomes a hero in this movie. Like, in the first movie, she's not shrewish, but she's shrill and kind of like doesn't get her husband. Kind of, she's the loud, talkative one, and sort of throws her weight around. And in this, like, she lets go of any resistance to this and is like fully on board with Babe and saving him, and he's part of the family, and like she gets to be spectacular in this, and that's awesome.
You know, when I had seen commercials for this movie and trailers for this movie when it was out, I had assumed that Magda Szubanski?
Sure.
Is that her name? Sure. Yeah, Magda Szubanski got to take center stage because James Cromwell didn't want to come back. And I don't know if he wanted a reduced role or anything, but I was like pleasantly surprised that he was in it, and then also Mrs. Hoggett got to take center stage. I thought that was
cool. Yeah. Yeah, I would like to
he
know
would
what
not
happened.
physically have been able to do the stunts that this much younger woman playing an older character can do.
She was like, what, in her late 30s during this movie, I think?
Which blew my mind when you said it, just because I've had the image of Mrs. Hoggett in my head. Like, yeah, she's in her 60s. Like, oh, okay, no, she's a young woman.
When I rewatched the first Babe, I did the math in my head and went, no, that can't be right. And I think she was like in her mid-30s when she did that one.
And you can see it when, like, she's put up against her other old ladies in the women's organization friends.
You're
Like, oh, I see, you have no wrinkles. I get it.
Yeah.
James Cromwell was so good in that movie.
I know. So
I'd forgotten.
In Babe?
In the first, Babe.
He's great.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
I really like Babe.
I mean, even his couple of scenes in this movie, when he says, "That'll do, pig," you feel like $1,000,000, just like Babe does.
Yeah.
He's not mad at Babe, even though Babe nearly killed him. Like, he understands.
Yeah.
I was just trying to do good, and the cost of doing good is you fuck up sometimes.
I remembered that he was not in much of this movie, and so in the beginning when he does fall down the well, you talked about you're not sure if the bull terrier is going to die. I wasn't sure if
I was real scared we had lost Mr.
Yeah.
Hoggett for a moment. I was like, no, movie, no. And
They
it was fine.
they filmed the thing falling on his head,
Right.
As you do when a safe lands on someone's head in a movie, right? When you're doing the flashback, and that's how my old man died.
Yeah.
He either has a skull crushed or he drowns because he's passed out
Right.
and no one can help him.
Made it look
He's
like he drowned.
fine.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Thank goodness. Because that would have been too dark.
And I hadn't even seen the original Babe since it was new. So, but I still had that like, oh, he better be okay.
I laughed out loud at the gun club when Ferdinand lands. He lands on a shooting range.
Oh yeah.
Where like the city version of the NRA is all lined up, and you have like a woman with a shotgun, you have a guy dual wielding pistols, you just have like 20 people all shooting at him, and then the sign says
Stay away, fools.
the gun club, and then the motto is all the fun you can have with a gun.
Good motto.
So good.
The Australians have a very different attitude toward guns than we do.
Yeah.
And that's nice.
Right.
They can laugh at it because they don't have the gun violence.
Yeah. They don't need gun violence when they get killed by all of their animals.
Exactly. Why would we shoot each other? The land is poisonous.
I'm just going through my notes, so this is all out of order and random. I'm sorry.
No
No.
When animal control gets to the hotel and starts, they offer up food to lure them into cages, and the poodle, who has an established history of kind of being, like used up by previous owners and other animals, she immediately starts doing tricks. That was really soul crushing.
Oh yeah.
She immediately starts walking on her hind legs.
She's seen some shit.
She's just happy to have attention at last. Like, doesn't care where it's coming from.
That poor thing.
Aww.
Yeah.
I'm so happy they all end up on the farm.
Right?
In this perfect bucolic existence.
I like how, and this is, again, I'm just going through notes. I like how when they're writing, when Mrs. Flume and Mrs. Hoggett are riding the bike, there's
The zaniest bicycle ever.
There's a moment
It bounces.
before, you see them bouncing, and I can't tell if it looked more, because before they reveal the wider shot of them riding a bike, I can't tell if it looked more, or was supposed to look more like they were riding a horse or riding a pogo stick together, but it looked almost equal part. Like, it's one of those things where if you imagine it being a horse, like if you took a GIF, you could be like, oh, they're riding a horse, or they're bouncing on a pogo stick together. It could have been either one.
Do you mean a GIF?
No, it's a GIF.
Ah.
Pretty sure it's GIF. Pretty sure graphics starts with a G.
What's he got?
I have a note that says fucking flea lick. I can't help it. I'm in tears.
Because he's got so much
This
fun.
stupid fucking movie has officially made me cry.
What part?
What got me was Babe saying why, and then my eyes started vomiting. I put down there's the angry dog. It says, I have a professional obligation to be vicious, and Babe looks at him and says, then you should change jobs.
Yeah.
It's the sweetest line ever.
Oh, babe, you understand.
Just has such a pure worldview.
He's so lovely.
I don't want it to be tarnished, man. That's the real stakes of the Babe movies, is you don't want Babe to lose his doe-eyed innocence.
Absolutely not. And that's, I think, what makes the movie work, and I think what makes a sequel absolutely appropriate for the people who argue, like, why would you make a sequel to Babe? Because why wouldn't you want more Babe? Why wouldn't you want to take his optimism and decency into any facet of life? Let's do, like, Babe in Washington. Let's take him.
Mr. Babe goes to Washington.
Yeah, and you won't let him spoil him.
We need that right now.
Oh my god! I would lose my mind over a scene where Babe turns like an evil president into a nicer person just by being good.
Not Trump, but like some other.
Well, because it's not possible. Trump. He just looks at it and says, "Why?" And then
he and Trump accidentally wind up in a well. We talked about the sequence earlier and how it's not great, but like the idea that you have Babe and just his adorable pure worldview, and eventually you have him as like king of his block wearing a spiked collar, doling out jelly beans to the other animals on the block. That's adorable, and that's really absurd and funny. And it's not it's not people like kissing his ring. It's that, they're being forced to say thank you. They're being forced to be decent to one another.
Oh, and like they go through and all the animals like say thank you to Babe, and then we cut to Thelonious and he gives some flakes of food to the fish, and the food says thank you, Thelonious. Oh gosh!
The fish sings the song.
Like no one appreciates Thelonious, but he cares. Oh.
So, final verdict: you guys like the movie?
Nah, not really.
I do like it overall. It goes bolder, and so there are things that don't work as well for me as, say, the original movie. But yeah, I think overall it's good and it's worth viewing.
Yeah.
I think if I had watched it at the time, or if, it's such a exciting place to go, an interesting place to go from Babe to go to this. Like, Babe Pig in the City sounds like a joke. It sounds like it shouldn't work. It sounds like the opposite place you should go with Babe. And I'm just so stoked that they just doubled down on it and had a vision and really, really went for it. And it's a weird movie, and it takes some risks, and I really dug that about it. So yeah, I liked it. And I agree, there are things that are a little too silly for me. I do like at the big gala at the end that the elite chefs immediately see Babe and they just want the pig because they're just immediately gonna eat the pig.
Yeah,
like that was kind of fun. But yeah, but I liked it.
Yeah, and it's stuff that works for a kids movie. Again, like I might as a grown up be a little out of the scene, but for a child, I absolutely would have no compunction showing them this, and they would eat all that up. I'm
going to go on record and say that I do like it when they do a sequel and do not. I mean, anytime they just rehash what happens in the original sucks. But then this is, like you said, a complete turn. They turn on whatever. And I like that. I like if you want to completely switch genres for a movie. I'd be on board for that. But like I said,
a hardcore Quentin Tarantino city cop drama, right? That's what you're looking for. I'm
not saying that, but in it, oh god, I can't think of good examples. Because I've had them in the past where I'm like, oh, this movie, whatever. Why describe it when I'm not going to remember it anyway? But as I said, this one, it felt a little bubblegummy to me. Like, just, it was entertaining enough, but I go away. Excuse me. I go away just like, okay, what was the point of that? However, having listened to you guys talk about it kind of makes me want to rewatch at least before it gets to the big finale, the big chase, when it becomes a complete cartoon. And since I still have 3 or 4 days on our Showtime trial on Amazon, maybe I'll do just that.
Oh, I can't rewatch this movie because I'm already going to take all of that sad imagery to my grave. I can't see it again. I did do the mistake, too, that we do where, I'm here with a notebook and a pen. And even though I actually didn't take a ton of notes, it's still Actually, my fourth note was at that minute 53 mark, so I wasn't taking a whole lot of notes. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, what am I looking? I'm looking for things here, too. And that's probably not the best way to go into movies, but... whatever. Yeah, it's a facet of the show that we do look for. Exactly. What can we pick apart and make fun of? Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that about myself, is that, and I've taken fewer. My first note is the Flumes used to be a family act because I didn't want to let go of that detail. But no, I've noticed that about myself too. Is I tend to, if I'm defending a movie, I'll just only point out like all the really really great things, or if I'm attacking a movie or someone else is defending a movie, I'll just nitpick the shit out of it. And I've kind of stopped doing that because I'm like, I'll just let this movie happen. But
yeah. That's probably for the better. And then what?
It makes our podcast less interesting, though.
That's true. Well, I mean, ideally, what we could do is watch the movie, get to the end, have an opinion about it, and then maybe go back and watch things that we want to point out. But whatever. Or immediately take notes after the movie without having to think like, okay, I'm going to take a note on this. Just like let it wash over you, like you said.
I finished this movie 20 minutes before heading over to record this, and I honestly thought like, oh man, I wish I watched this a week earlier, because this is one of those ones I think I would have wanted to watch twice before doing this, just because there was so much, I don't know, there were so many details hidden in the background. Yeah. I liked it. I'm definitely going to watch it again.
Cool.
And have my soul destroyed. But go on.
Cool. Let's do IDOBM IMDb trivia, TM.
Okay.
One of these days I'm going to have to make that sound. You can just make that the theme song.
But I could just do it myself and you wouldn't have to insert.
That's true, because I put a lot of work into a certain theme song that we're never going to play again.
What if you and Bobby talked about gender politics?
It's still got Laura throughout the theme song.
But that's okay, it's an homage.
Maybe. We'll see.
So I am very disappointed to say, guys, that there was not a lot of IMDb trivia. I feel like I'm letting you down. So instead,
it's not you, it's IMDb letting us.
Well, yeah, it's all the questionable users who contribute their trivia to IMDb. But to start off, what I've decided to do instead is read some of the critical headlines from the Rotten Tomatoes, just the different critics.
We're going to need a different theme song, then.
So the one IMDb trivia I will say is that in 2011, Ron Meyer, the president and chief operating officer of Universal Studios, the producers of the film, told an audience at the film festival that Babe Pig in the City was one of the 2 worst movies that Universal had ever made, The Wolfman being the other one. So Ron Meyer's out.
When was that?
In 2011.
Fuck that
was
guy.
That was 13 years later, and it was still
that, and like Wolfman's piece of shit.
That was the Benicio del Toro one?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, that was bad.
It was terrible.
Universal Studios has made some horrible movies,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
And they tout them happily, like, oh, look at these pieces of crap, they're famous.
That's such bullshit. No, that bothers me because, like, it's one thing to not like the movie, but I feel like I can compartmentalize in my brain, like, this movie was trying to do something. This movie was trying to be different, and it might have failed along the way, and I'm not going to punish it for failing, fuck that guy.
I'm wondering what the context was. Why is he crapping on Universal movies?
And the shame was, it was not considered financially successful. It was really considered to have been a failure, and that seems like a terrible shame, and that, like, this little movie doesn't deserve that.
Yeah. I mean, it was such a change from the original, and that is the, I said I like it when movies don't just rehash it, but that's what a lot of people want. It's like, I want to see the exact same movie again, but with bigger stakes.
People are the worst. But so to go with some of the critics' headlines, we have...
No, that ruined my day. No more.
Okay.
Do you know all the Jurassic Park movies were Universal? And 2 and 3 are way worse than this movie. I'm just looking at all the Universals.
But they were financially successful.
All the Jaws movies are Universal movies.
That's right.
Come on.
Babe Pig in the City is worse than Jaws: The Revenge. We all know that, right?
Please, this guy's a piece of dirt.
Jaws: The Revenge was trying to be something though. It was going in a different direction.
What about Jaws 3D?
His tail doesn't move.
Jurassic Park was just like Jurassic Park again. Jurassic Park,
less
but
successful.
nostalgic.
Dr. Seuss' How the Grinch Stole Christmas was a Universal movie.
And I will grant you. And
I can't.
We know I like that movie. Babe Pig in the City is a masterpiece.
All the Terminator movies, which I like a lot of them. Yeah.
God.
This guy is a douchebag. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Are the Psycho sequels Universal too?
Probably.
Yeah, he's the worst.
Yeah.
No, let's keep going. Let's shit on Universal. Let's keep going.
So I'm going to read some of the critics' headlines. We have Pat Graham from the Chicago Reader. It's George Miller's masterpiece, maybe even the best commercial film of 1998. So suck it, Ron Meyer of Universal Studios. Roger Ebert said more magical than the original. Lisa Schwartzbaum said brilliant. That's from Entertainment Weekly.
I remember Lisa Schwartzbaum.
Yeah, that's why I pulled her out. I'm like, oh, Lisa. Jeffrey Overstreet from Looking Closer. Don't know what that is, but I liked his quote. This is the stuff of Dickens, told on the scale of Blade Runner and Brazil, with the madcap spirit of the great Muppet Caper.
That is a very apt.
Yeah, that's not inaccurate.
I like that one. On the opposite side of that, Maitland McDonough from TV Guide said, this film may scar impressionable children for life.
Those are not mutually exclusive. I mean, Blade Runner was in the previous description, so...
Kevin Maynard from Mr. Showbiz said, so distressingly dark, grim, and cynical, it's likely to make kids cry. Again, not wrong. Julie Hines from the San Jose Mercury News.
Do you guys think it's cynical? You said not
no,
wrong.
Decidedly not.
Yeah, so I mean, making the kids cry is not wrong, but it's cynical?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's saying there's darkness in the world, but it's not.
We accept it and move past it.
Yeah, okay. Anyway.
I'll go Julie Hines, because she was really having fun with it. Laden with more useless pork than a congressional bill.
There's one pig in it. Fuck you.
We definitely need a Mr. Babe Goes to Washington after that.
And then the final one, just because it took me on a journey, Stephen D. Greydanis from something called Decent Films Guide. So immediately, fuck that guy.
Wait, is it a guide of decent films, or is this a film guide that is decent?
I think it is a guide of decent film.
Is this
Take decent to me.
Sorry, you won't see any Schindler's List on this. We just want decent, not good films.
Yeah. Especially to keep those Jews away.
That too. They're not decent.
So for his quote, would anyone go for a sequel to The Wizard of Oz that catapulted Dorothy and Toto into the world of Once Were Warriors and Escape from New York? This guy's never seen Return to Oz. Because that thing is a nightmare. Boom. So yeah,
Goes to dynamite.
I couldn't hear that blurb over the sound of him jerking off. Do I need to say that again? I couldn't hear that review over the sound of him jerking off.
No, when Loren slammed the paper down, that made...
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Do I need to say it again?
Please.
I couldn't...
Loren, you're killing me. You kicked it earlier, and that's...
Ronnie is the worst transgressor on this front.
He is very much so.
Ronnie's not here right now.
You know, he's sick.
Ronnie's not here, man. Okay, cool.
We're missing like our token contrarian. Right?
No, we're not.
We all agree too well.
That is true.
Sam is our contrarian this episode, and he's just like, it was a movie, and I enjoyed parts of it.
Have we chosen this movie and this like context for this one as just a Laura's gone and we don't know what to do, so we're picking a movie that we're all going to more or less agree on?
You know what? Let's start over. This movie sucks.
Missing Laura playing Panda Pop in the corner, just being like, this movie, I mean, like, what do you want me to say? It sucks. Like, the pig looked fake. But I love how the first episode when Laura's gone too, we picked the vegetarian fable.
Oh yeah, I can never eat pork again, by the way. And I'm sorry about that because I've recently remembered how good pork is.
I have to say, watching Babe Pig in the City had no effect on my feeling about meat products. But rewatching Babe, I'm like, yeah, I really should probably go vegetarian.
Okay, but this movie, so I drive Surface Streets home every day and always see a dog or two just wandering around on its own, and like always have the feeling of, should I stop, should I pick it up, maybe it's just, wandering back home.
Today you saw one with
but
wheels.
Today this sweet little puppy about his size, like just sitting by a bus stop, and it was like agonizing, like, should I turn around, should I go get back him? I did actually turn around and he was gone, but it was
he probably got the bus.
I hope so, that he's just heading home after a hard day of work. But I always feel it, but having this movie fresh in my head is like, I have to go back, don't I?
You have a rule. If you're driving to work, which is your mom's house, and you want to pick up a dog, go for it. If you're driving home, that dog stays. Because the last dog we brought in broke my heart. Anyway, that's a story for
I didn't bring that dog in, did I?
No, you didn't. But anyway, let's talk about the movie we wish we'd seen.
Ugh, this movie is crap. I could write a better movie in my sleep.
And now, IDOBM presents the movie we wish we'd seen.
And that is, of course, where we take an aspect of this movie, and which is, I think, what they did when they made this movie, when they made Babe Pig in the City. They said, let's take an aspect of Babe, and do something totally different with it. And that's what happened here. So, and since usually my answers are joke answers, I'm probably not going to have anything. So yeah, the movie we wish we'd seen. Let's take an aspect of this movie and make a sequel, prequel, take one of the characters, get his own movie, this movie from a different point of view. I feel like I haven't been explaining this as well in the past as I could. So anything in this movie, what movie would you like to have seen? Bobby.
You know, I'm kind of in the same boat where I'm like, I don't know what I could... I mean, like, Babe goes to space, Babe meets pirates, Babe finds a time machine and goes back to the medieval times. Like, any of that would feel like a logical next step to me, given how ridiculous this movie's premise was. But I will say I missed Flying Rex, and I wish that if this movie ever got a sequel... I wish Flying Rex could be in it more, because I really enjoyed them in the first movie, and it was nice to see them for a little bit.
Well, Babe in a time machine automatically think that he should be the new companion on Doctor Who, because clearly the Doctor should be able to speak pig, and so he can have conversations. Mm-hmm. So it's always frustrating when you have talking animal movies, like, oh, why can't you talk to the humans?
Right, you can talk to other animal species. Why can't you talk human?
Unless you're an adorable little capuchin monkey, then you can't talk at all.
No, you're chipper. You're so cute and you steal things. Oh, you're the cutest klepto ever.
That is the animal of the animal kingdom, because they do not talk. How about you, Loren?
I think we already covered it. I want to see Babe White and Blue. Babe going to Washington, D.C. and not draining the swamp, but encouraging the swamp to be healthier and better.
But just planting lovely flowers along the swamp.
Yeah.
So for mine, I think we should take Babe and put him back in a setting like where this farmer finds him and thinks like, I don't know, maybe he can herd herd sheep or something like that, and then see where that takes them.
Do you just want to see the original Babe again?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I really like your idea though. We're gonna have a fight over if it's Mr. Babe Goes to Washington or Pig White and Blue though. So
we have to think of a context of getting him from Australia to Washington D.C. That's gonna be the hard point.
Well, he already is in, like this metropolis, and just anywhere. So it could just be any they could make it our American capital. Due to the fact that he pretty much only interacts with animals, it might be a little bit rough, but I believe in George Miller.
Yeah. Do you want to see Babe in the Mad Max sequel?
He could turn that world around.
With his smile?
My first thought was he's going to get killed, but then I'm like, no,
he'd be fine.
Yeah.
It'd just be a very different movie.
Yes, I would.
It would end with Emerson Joe giving out all the hugs.
Let's talk about things that need no defense. Just whatever we're into right now that doesn't need any defense, but we're gonna talk about it. Did I mention last time? A few times ago?
No, you didn't.
Okay. Have I mentioned documentary now?
Yes. Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Damn it. I'm going to do two then.
Okay.
Because, one, if I haven't said it already, documentary now, which is on Netflix, and IFC. It airs on IFC, and the episodes are now on Netflix. It's a Fred Armisen, help me out, what's his name?
Bill Hader.
Bill Hader. I'm not good with names. It has nothing to do with...
That's canon.
Yes. Bill Hader series where they take... they do basically mockumentaries. They make short films that are based on actual documentaries, and they are so good. I haven't seen all of the ones that they are based on, but from what I've seen, they do a really good job of matching up the original one and being very funny and entertaining, and sometimes even like heartfelt and beautiful, like the rice and beans one. That was, if you get a chance, that one really got to me in my heart, and then like. The original, I think it's the first one where it was the Grey Gardens one kind of parody, that is a good short horror film, like a found footage horror film.
Spoilers.
And they are all funny and all very good. And if I have mentioned this before, sorry, I also watched The Handmaid's Tale on Hulu, which is very good. So much so that I am reading the book right now, and if I like that, you'll hear about it next month. Loren, how about you?
I can't watch The Handmaid's Tale because I feel so guilty that I had the book on my shelf for years and had not read it. And now I feel like, I haven't earned the right to watch the TV show. I'm going to need no defense, something that is way behind the times, but I have reasons. new to Broadway this last season was the musical Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812. And it was a show I was obsessed with when they had it downtown in a tent. It takes a small section right out of the middle of War and Peace and tells the story through a frenetic opera-style mashup of musical genres and storytelling, and it's all mostly sung, and it's beautiful and interesting. And I purposely hadn't listened to the full soundtrack because we were going to see it, and I wanted to see it because theatrically it's this incredible experience where there's seating on stage and the actors weave among people and interact with the audience as they're performing, and I was so excited. And it's closing a month before we get there, and so I heartbrokenly watched the crappy YouTube full show video and listened to the soundtrack, and it's beautiful. It's weird and daring and cutting edge, interesting theater, but it's so good. And Josh Groban is Pierre in it, and he's amazing.
Really?
Oh yeah. I've always loved Josh Groban, but not for any of the music that he produced in the world, because he's the coolest guy and has a voice like an angel, but most of his music is like parent music. And so to hear his melodic voice singing his heart out for this like gorgeous story is so great.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah. Except the fact that we're not going to see it.
Yeah.
Which sucks.
Yeah. So please bring it to LA. I don't know. It's never going to
All
come
our
here. I'm never
Broadway
gonna see
producer
it.
listeners. Or
Surely the Center Theater Group, someone there must listen to it and like will do me a solid.
We do have one listener who is board who is on the board of a theater group.
That's right.
But
my friend could bring it to the very small,
yeah,
exciting and good theater.
and if he
community.
does, we'll go see it. 100%.
They'd make it amazing. It would be told with puppets. They would be incredible if Rogue Artist did it.
Cool. How about you, Bobby?
I'm going to cheat and do two also. So Babe Pig in the City came out in the 90s. The 90s is also when Sonic CD came out, which was the last good Sonic the Hedgehog game. And I'm happy to report a couple decades later, Sonic Mania just came out, and it's fucking awesome. It apes the style of Sonic CD, but it does things that obviously the Sega Genesis and Sega CD engine couldn't do. And it's not just like pandering nostalgia rehash kind of stuff. Like the levels are inventive and it's so much fun, and I can't get over how awesomely that game nailed its landing, because it's been like a joke for 20 years. It's like, we're reinventing Sonic and here's a shitty game, we're reinventing Sonic, here's a shitty game. And I guess they just outsourced this project to a bunch of fans who'd been doing ports of Sonic games for iPhones and stuff, and they put them in charge of a game and they knocked it out of the park. And I love Sonic Mania so much.
Now, the last Sonic game I played was Sonic 2. Was it Will I Like This New One?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's great. It's definitely of the Sonic 2, Sonic 3, Sonic Knuckles, Sonic CD family.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Does he still just run fast and collect
He runs
coins?
so fast.
Is that
Yes.
basically what it?
Yes.
There's something to be said for that.
I mean, okay, and this might not make sense unless you're a Sonic nerd. You go through Chemical Plant Zone, which is the second act of Sonic 2, again. But when you get to your mid-act boss, you get dropped into Dr. Robotnik's Bean Machine, and you play a puzzle game against Dr. Robotnik from the Genesis era, and I like screamed with glee the whole time because I was just so happy. But it's great. It's so good. So I love it.
Nice.
I'm gonna do something heretical and also recommend a lo-fi movie podcast that I discovered on a car trip called Let's Watch Two Movies. It's hosted by Maddie Myers, and Maddie Myers is she's a writer for Kotaku, I think, and then Marianne Murray, who I don't know what she does, but she's great. And they do two-parter. They do like 2 episodes, and they pair at a time, and they pair 2 movies together. I started on their Mad Max Fury Road Swiss Army Man podcast, but then I've listened to like their Civil War Batman v Superman episode, their Big Lebowski Shawshank Redemption episodes. It's they've just got a really good rapport. They go on excessively long, which I kind of like. And yeah, so Let's Watch Two Movies is a good time.
Is there an impetus at all to compare the films? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How often do they come out? Because we have a lot of trouble getting together when we watch one movie.
I don't know, actually, because I discovered this later. So I noticed, I think, like, the last ones they did Cabin in the Woods and The Final Girls. And those came out a week apart. And then I don't think they've released another one since then. And it's been a couple weeks. So, yeah, I think they do it more frequently than every month. But I don't know.
Okay.
It's good.
Cool.
I want to watch Swiss Army Man.
Yeah, me too.
It's so good, guys.
I know.
I'm like screaming at a wall. I'm like, yeah, everyone watch this Army Man. It's great. But
nah, I don't want to watch it now.
I wanted to.
If it's going to make you feel better.
It will make me feel better.
We're
Until you hate it, then I'm just going to be like, I'll walk alone in the park.
There's some commitment to watching movies right now that we have the hardest time doing. It's also been tough because we've had a lot of TV to get through, but like somehow the commitment of a half an hour to 2 hours is like, oh man, I don't know.
Right? Like a 45-minute thing, sure, no problem.
Whereas we'll watch 2 episodes of something in an evening, but somehow the movie
That's pretty
journey is rare.
Yeah, that's true. And now we're trying to watch the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies before Ragnarok comes out. So that's going to suck up a lot of our movie time.
Are you rewatching, or are there any that you have not watched?
We're rewatching.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Some reluctantly.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of all of them, but I'm going to rewatch them anyway.
Maybe find some things to... Yeah, probably not. I'm sure we'll still have the same opinions.
There is the thing that, like if you have the yo-yo thing that, like, when you watch a movie the first time, you're like, oh, that was disappointing. Then you watch it a second time and you remember being disappointed. So you're like, oh, that was better than I remember it. And the next time you're like, oh, I don't like that much. So it could be that.
The Marvel movies are in... Like, I remember really liking Thor Dark World when I saw it, and then I started to rewatch it again, and I'm like, this is really not entertaining to me at all.
See, neither of the Thor movies really did it a lot.
See, I really like the first one, Dark World, not so much. I'm worried about rewatchability on some of them, but so far, like, I remember I saw Avengers several times, and rewatching Iron Man 1, I was like, yeah, this movie's always fun.
Yeah, it's a very good movie.
It'll be fun to pick out.
Ant-Man grew on me.
I
like
Ant-Man
a lot. I saw Ant-Man and I was just like, that was fun, but I think it's a solid movie.
But I don't expect that Iron Man 2 or Doctor Strange are going to get any better.
Iron Man 2 is a bad movie.
And that's our next one, so...
Doctor Strange is like an underwhelming movie, but Iron Man 2 is just bad.
Yeah, that's too bad.
There's so much happening in Doctor Strange for it not to be better.
Yeah, so I'm not looking forward to either. Yeah, the Thors, even though I like the Thor character.
You're
you're
gonna like first Thor, I promise.
Okay.
And even Captain America, we don't really like.
First Avenger.
I know, and I feel bad that it's not my favorite, and I'm not sure why. I think it's because they're sort of rushing through the story.
There's a lot that I like about it on paper,
yeah,
but it just doesn't work for me.
I think when you take, and weirdly, I almost think that like the Captain America movies are good to watch back to back to back, just because Steve Rogers' arc is so well drawn throughout that series.
Right.
I think he's because I like him so much, I'm sad we don't like the first one. Maybe this time it'll help.
I like the other two.
Because Winter Soldier, Civil War, awesome. And
this will be the third time I've seen it, though. So, like, if I didn't like it the second time,
I'm just curious. What's everyone's favorite Marvel movie?
Oh,
that's rough.
Can't pick one.
That is rough.
Give you a list. I really loved Avengers when it happened.
I'm gonna have to say The Incredible Hulk. Actually, I do like Incredible Hulk more than people get.
I'm so excited to go back and watch Iron Man 3 because I remember being blown away by it, but we've only seen it once.
Iron Man 3 is my reflexive answer to my favorite because I think... Iron Man 3 is great. I don't know what anyone's fucking problem with that movie.
People give it crap.
But
people give it crap? It's amazing.
Yeah, that's like that's a lot of people's least favorite movie.
What? Have they seen Iron Man 2?
Yeah.
And I could see that if you're like into the comics and what they did with the Mandarin and
made him an interesting character.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that sucks.
And I'm not even saying making but like how it veered from the comic and how the Guy Pearce guy turned out to be the bad guy. I'm like, okay, whatever. He wasn't that great of a bad guy, but whatever. Everything else going on in the movie was magic.
The movie was about the PTSD that Stark was going through.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
The interactions with the kid.
Yeah. No, it's... Yeah, the interactions with the kid were great. And that movie could have fucked that up so bad. Yeah. That's my reflexive answer for, like, that's my favorite, because everyone else is wrong about this. It might be Winter Soldier, though.
Crap, I forgot.
I really like the Winter Soldier.
Really good. Oh, they snuck such a brilliant, taut political drama into
Which, I love that
comic book movie.
I always... Yeah, that one I kind of sort of forget about because I think of... And not that that's not fun, but it's not as funny or as, kiddie fun.
The fun of them is sort of what sticks with you, the comedy and the
That was so
jokes.
good.
It's such a good movie.
Yeah.
Can I tell you about my first time watching Winter Soldier in the theaters? I know we're still running the podcast, but podcast audience will think this is funny.
I was listening to a movie podcast where like those guys talked for a half hour before they got to the whole premise of the
Was this Flophouse?
No, do they do that too?
Flophouse.
So they made me not feel
are
guilty.
nothing but tangents. I love that podcast. Anyway,
This is important.
So winter spoilers.
It's coming.
Winter Soldier
like
spoilers.
it was.
That would have been spoiled for you in the Civil War trailer, but so I got halfway through that movie on opening night, packed theater. Winter Soldier's mask flies off, big dramatic moment. Steve says Bucky, and then the Winter Soldier says, "Who the hell is Bucky?" And then the screen freezes, and then we found out the restaurant next door caught on fire, and they evacuated the theater and sent us all home.
I hope you got your money back.
We got a voucher for a free ticket. I got a cold that night and couldn't see it for 2 more days, and I was so sad. It was the worst.
I was joking. The restaurant burning down is worse than
no
not
one
finishing
was
the movie.
there. Such bullshit. Whatever. It was like not. It's like it was one of those Asian buffets that wasn't very good.
Oh, well, that was fine then. Can you
Yeah.
just put it out?
Also, I like Jewish people. I want to say that because earlier in the podcast I made a joke that I did not have a chance to say "just kidding" with.
Why are you writing on a sheet of paper? I don't actually like Jewish people right now.
That's not what it says. Those are swastikas.
So it's the Sanskrit or the Hindu image of like peace or whatever that
No,
swastikas actually
no.
are? Nope.
I'm writing it
All right.
clockwise.
All right. Damn it.
See the little mustache on it?
I was really trying
That's
to
a little Hitler
You
mustache.
screwed yourself now.
It's not a controversial opinion that you have there, Sam.
That's right. 25% of Americans are totally okay with this.
Let's rewatch Babe Pig in the City.
I'm telling you, shit like that just makes me so emotional right now. Just when a character's like, I want to do the right thing, you know, I'm like, I'm behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah, if only some senators would do the same.
Yeah.
Babe.
Right?
There's an arc in, I don't know if you've gotten there, there's an arc in Steven Universe where Steven just befriends one of the villains and turns the villain into a good person
Oh my gosh.
through friendship, and it works so well.
We're not that far into it.
But I'm starting to.
It's
appreciate
before,
the
it's
show.
right, it's like 2 episodes before Steven dies, so.
I thought you were going to say like before the last episode of the first season or something, which that is a long 52 episodes in the first season.
They're 10 minutes each!
I know. So 26 episodes is the equivalent to 4.5-hour show. Anyway, we're going long and tangenty. Before we go, does anyone have anything to plug? I got a show September 3rd. Hopefully this will be out by then. It is going to be an interesting show because there will be alcohol. There will be alcohol. There will be drunk people. There will be people who are not drunk. And then a third group, which you'll have to come to the show
legally not allowed
or
to
listen
say.
to a previous podcast where Laura spilled the beans. But I didn't say anything. But to find out what that third group will be.
Beans?
Beans? Yes.
Oh, the musical fruit.
Yes, made with pot butter. What? No, there will be no beans. So that should be a fun show. And that's it for me for now. Anyone else? Go to our go to our what do we have? Our website, IDOBM Podcast.
Our website.
Like us on Facebook.
Email us.
There's something where they can rate us because that really helps.
We just
with
want to be your
searchability.
friend. Like,
Right?
if you don't, if you're one of the few listeners we have who we don't know personally, like, honestly, email us. We'd love to hear from you.
I mean, we've given you hours of entertainment.
Sam, don't do that right now.
What?
We're trying
No?
to be their friends. We're trying to be their
okay,
friends.
yeah.
No, Sam's being a dick. Don't listen to Sam. Don't listen. Just tweet at us. Just say hey.
I mean, you've heard us. We don't mind talking into the void, obviously, but it'd be nice if
We are in love with the sound of our own voice enough that
or if you disagree with us. If you have constructive criticism, please, not just calling us all jerks and telling us to shove our heads places.
If we're using too much vocal fry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Vocal fry.
if you want to call me a loser, that's okay. I'll accept it.
If you want to pick 2 people to talk about gender politics.
Ooh.
Oh, we could put to a vote.
I like the idea to the 2 men in the podcast.
What if we have? So we're considering having guests on more regularly now that we are just down to 3 people. What if we had the guest on and just threw them into the gender politics debate without telling them? And now so and so and Bobby.
Lauren, I think you're telling them right now.
They're not gonna know.
That's true. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. Bobby, Loren.
Wow. Wow.
We were joking about
Almost
whether or not
made
that
it
would
through.
happen prior
Because
to recording.
she came up in conversation. I don't know what's wrong with me.
We've been married
I don't even-
for 2.5 years now.
I don't even know why I say it. They know who you are. You were introduced in the beginning. All right. Thanks for listening. Good night, friends. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Gung, 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 gung.
Come on!